In today's video, we're looking at shocking cases of chimpanzee attacks. From a roadside zoo worker in Mississippi facing an escaped chimp, to a backyard party in Texas that turned deadly. But first, the heartbreaking case of a little girl who was eaten alive after playing with her neighbor's pet chimpanzee. It was April 12, 2014, in a quiet, rural neighborhood just outside Gainesville, Florida. The day was warm, the sky clear, and the steady hum of insects carried across the yards. Most homes had wide lawns with low fences, and people here knew each other's routines. It was the kind of place where nothing seemed rushed. Among the residents was 7-year-old Emily Boise. She lived with her mother and grandmother in a small, single-story home. Emily was a quiet child, happiest when she had a pencil and paper in hand, drawing the animals she loved. Most afternoons, she played in the backyard, while her grandmother worked in the garden. From that yard, she could often see Buddy, the neighbor's chimpanzee. For months, she had watched him from a distance, curious about the animal that always seemed to be watching her back. Buddy's owner had kept him since he was a baby. People in the area sometimes saw him on the porch, sitting in a chair or moving around. Some thought he was friendly, others avoided him, saying he could be aggressive if startled. His living setup was basic, a long, heavy chain fixed to a porch post. It gave him several feet of slack, enough to reach the fence line if he leaned forward and stretched his arms. The porch sat only a few feet from the dividing fence, making that distance possible. The Carters' backyard shared one side with Buddy's property. That afternoon, Emily's grandmother was by the fence, talking with Buddy's owner while she pulled crabgrass and dollarweed from the garden. The air carried the light smell of fresh soil and cut grass. A few feet away, Buddy sat near the porch post, legs bent, watching quietly. Emily wandered toward the fence, juice box in hand, and stopped just close enough to be within the reach of his chain. She smiled when he tilted his head at her. Adult male chimpanzees like Buddy can weigh more than 100 pounds and stand up to 5 feet tall when upright. They have powerful arms, strong enough to overpower an adult, and a bite that can break bone. In the wild, they use their strength to defend territory, assert dominance, and hunt small prey. Even in captivity, they can shift from calm to aggressive in moments, especially when stressed or given a chance to reach beyond their enclosure. There had been earlier signs that Buddy could be unpredictable. A neighbor had once seen him throw objects toward a repairman. The chain had a loose link near the porch post that hadn't been fixed. On this afternoon, he shifted his posture, ears slightly back, eyes narrowing, body lowering. His focus stayed on the juice box in Emily's hand. Her grandmother, still talking, didn't notice the change. The owner, used to Buddy's behavior, didn't step in. Emily moved a little closer, holding her arm out toward him. It happened in a single motion. Buddy reached forward and grabbed Emily's wrist, his fingers closing tightly. The chain length and his arm span allowed him to pull her up against the fence. The juice box fell into the grass. His other arm wrapped around her torso as he bit into her upper arm. The sound was sharp, mixed with tearing fabric. Emily screamed. Her grandmother rushed forward, grabbing Emily around the waist, trying to pull her back. Buddy tightened his grip, wrapping his legs around her hips. His teeth closed again, this time on the side of her neck. The owner pulled at the chain, but it had twisted and caught against the post. A neighbor ran over with a broom, striking Buddy's side, but he kept his hold. Blood was visible on Emily's shirt and on the wood of the porch post. Buddy tried to drag her toward the porch, pulling her through the gap between the fence and the post. The strikes from the broom grew harder, and he released one hand to swat at it, but his mouth stayed locked on her shoulder. Emily's screams became weaker. Sirens could be heard within minutes. A patrol car from a nearby road arrived in about 3 minutes from the first 911 call. Officers saw Buddy still holding Emily. As they approached, he let go and turned toward them, moving quickly. 2 shots were fired, and Buddy collapsed on the porch. Emily lay on the ground by the fence. Her skin was pale, and there was heavy bleeding from her neck and shoulder. Paramedics worked on her in the yard, but the injuries had severed major blood vessels. She was pronounced dead where she lay. Her juice box was crushed nearby, Later, her sketchpad was found open on the porch steps, showing a drawing of a monkey she had made earlier that week. The funeral was held a few days later at the small church in town. It was quiet, with family, classmates, and neighbors filling the pews. Her small white casket sat at the front. Some people avoided looking at it, focusing on the floor instead. Authorities released a short statement urging residents not to keep chimpanzees or other primates as pets, stressing that familiarity does not make them safe. The sheriff's office confirmed that Buddy's owner would not face criminal charges, but that keeping such animals would now require stricter permits in the county. Within weeks, the porch was cleared. The chain, the post, and the small feeding area were dismantled. The yard looked empty, the quiet more noticeable than before. The incident did not reach national headlines. The Florida attack was shocking, but in Mississippi, a loose chimp at a roadside zoo would prove just as deadly. It was August 6, 2016, at a small roadside zoo in rural Mississippi. The heat was heavy, the temperature already climbing past 95 degrees by mid-morning. The air carried the smell of hay, damp soil, and the sharp scent of animal pens. A few visitors moved slowly between enclosures, stopping to watch goats and camels resting in the shade. It looked like any other slow summer day, but out of sight, one section of the zoo's fencing was being held together with a quick repair. Among the staff on duty that morning was Sam Dellinger, 42 years old. He had worked part-time at the zoo for just over a year, splitting his hours between early mornings and afternoons. Born and raised nearby, Sam was used to outdoor work. His tasks here were simple but steady: mowing grass, clearing debris, cleaning stalls, and hauling feed. He sometimes cared for smaller animals, but he had no training for handling dangerous ones. People who worked with him knew him as reliable, someone who finished what he started and stepped in when help was needed. That summer had been hard on the facility. Strong storms had damaged several areas of fencing, and the owner had made patchwork repairs where needed. One of the more serious problems was a chain-link corner panel in the chimpanzee enclosure. A large branch had fallen against it weeks earlier, bending the frame where it met the wooden post. The corner was reinforced with wire and a metal stake, but it was still weaker than it should have been. Staff knew it needed a full repair, but it had been pushed back in the schedule. The chimpanzee enclosure sat at the far end of the property, shaded on one side by a line of pine trees. Inside were several chimps, the largest being a fully grown 17-year-old male named Rex. From the visitor path, people could see platforms, climbing ropes, and feeding stations set across the pen. The ground was a mix of packed dirt, scattered straw, and old leaves. On hot days like this, most of the chimps stayed in the shade, but Rex often moved along the edges, watching what happened outside the fence. Adult male chimps like Rex can weigh more than 120 pounds and stand over 5 feet tall when upright. Their arms and grip are far stronger than a human's, and they can break bones with little effort. Their bite is powerful enough to crush bone, and in an attack, they often go for the face, hands, or other exposed areas. In captivity, they can look calm one moment and turn aggressive the next, especially when stressed or if they spot a way to get out. In the weeks before the incident, staff had seen Rex test the damaged corner. He would grip the chain link, lean his weight into it, and then walk away when someone came near. That morning, Sam noticed him pacing along that same side, glancing toward the feed shed from time to time. Not long after, Rex returned to the corner and began pulling again. This time the wire bracing shifted. Witnesses later said he rocked the panel back and forth until the frame separated enough for him to push through near ground level. Sam was in the feed shed nearby when he noticed Rex outside the enclosure. He reached for a bucket of apples just inside the doorway, knowing food was sometimes used to guide animals back into their pens. Hoping it would work, he stepped into the space between the shed and the path, holding the bucket where Rex could see it. Rex started toward him at a steady walk, eyes on the apples. Then, without slowing, he broke into a run. The gap closed quickly. With no barrier behind him and little room to move, Sam was struck hard in the chest. The force knocked him backward, sending him down onto the dirt. The impact drove the bucket from Sam's hands, scattering apples onto the ground. Rex pinned him, one hand gripping his arm while his teeth clamped down on the side of Sam's face. The first bite crushed part of his cheek and tore into muscle. Sam tried to pull his arm free, but Rex shifted his grip and bit into his hand, breaking several bones. Two workers ran toward the noise, shouting and hitting metal panels to scare the chimp away. Rex didn't let go. He pulled at Sam's arm, then bit again toward the neck. One worker grabbed a hose, spraying a stream of water at Rex's back. The chimp turned slightly but kept his hold. A second hose was brought in, and the combined spray forced Rex to release one hand. Sam tried to crawl toward the shed, but Rex grabbed his leg and pulled him back, biting into his calf. The hoses stayed on him, and loud banging on the nearby gate finally made him back away several feet. Staff pulled Sam out of reach, leaving the apples scattered across the dirt. Rex retreated toward the pine trees, where he sat watching until another staff member threw more fruit into the open enclosure. He followed the food inside, and the gate was shut behind him. Emergency services arrived about 8 minutes after the call. Paramedics worked quickly, but Sam had severe wounds to his face, neck, hands, and legs. The bites to his cheek and neck caused heavy bleeding, and he was pronounced dead shortly after reaching the hospital. His torn work gloves were found nearby, along with the empty bucket from the shed. The zoo was closed the same day. State inspectors found multiple safety violations, including the incomplete repair on the chimp enclosure. Within weeks, all the exotic animals, including Rex, were relocated to other facilities. The damaged corner panel was dismantled entirely. Sam's funeral was held at a small local church. Friends and family remembered him as a steady worker who was always willing to help. The incident left a lasting mark on the town and served as a reminder of how quickly routine work can turn deadly when safety measures are left unfinished. Sam's death shut the zoo down, but thousands of miles away, a safari trip turned fatal when one tourist stepped out for a closer look. It was May 23, 2015, at a safari park outside Hoedspruit, South Africa. Morning light lay flat over dry grass, and a steady wind pushed dust along the track. A line of open vehicles moved in slowly, engines low. From a distance, it looked like a normal drive, but the chimp troop along the route was restless, and the quiet wouldn't last. Among the visitors was Melissa Hugh, 33, traveling from Denver with 2 college friends. She worked as a pediatric nurse and used trips like this to recharge after long night shifts. She had planned the journey for 2 years, choosing a park with clear safety rules and daytime drives. Her aim was straightforward: see the wildlife, take a few photos worth framing, and be back at the lodge before dark. She rode the middle bench with a compact camera on a neck strap and her phone set to video. Friends said she liked close shots but followed instructions. Earlier, she stayed seated near elephants and pulled her hand back from a giraffe when told. What she wanted most was a photo of juvenile chimps for her wall. The exhibit sat in a basin with sparse grass, scattered acacia, and a shallow moat between the troop and the track. Heat shimmered as the sun climbed. Guinea fowl crossed in quick bursts, dust mixed with fuel from idling engines. 3 vehicles stopped 20 to 30 feet apart. Juveniles dragged branches and splashed near the inner edge, drawing cameras from every seat. Chimpanzees are not native here, but some parks keep them in semi-open enclosures. Adult males can weigh more than 120 pounds and, when upright, stand over 5 feet. Their arms and shoulders produce crushing force, and their bite can break bone. Troops move by rank. A dominant male displays with short bursts and charges. When stress rises, others follow. Even with staff nearby, those patterns remain. Guides repeated 2 rules at the gate and again on the track: stay in the vehicle and do not step past the side rails. The troop had been tense all week as a subadult tested older animals. A warning card sat on each dashboard. As the convoy idled, a crack of branches on the far side drew the dominant male's eyes. He watched the vehicles and fixed on movement in the second truck. Melissa saw 2 juveniles wrestling and stood to film. In the tight bench space, her knee knocked a bag to the floor. A friend reached down while Melissa stepped onto the sideboard for a cleaner angle. The guide hissed a warning to sit. She started to lower herself, then saw a juvenile lift a stick and beat the water. She braced one foot on the ground to take 2 quick frames. The dominant male left the inner shade and moved towards the moat on a diagonal. He crossed open ground at a rolling pace, head low. Guides in the front and rear trucks shouted to stay inside. He slowed at the inner edge, scanned, then leaped the narrowest gap and climbed the bank in seconds. Melissa had one hand on the rail and one foot on the dirt when he reached her. He caught her forearm with both hands and yanked. She slid from the step and landed on her hip and elbow, the camera strap cinched against her neck. He bit into her forearm below the elbow, canines meeting through muscle. The guide revved the engine and hammered the doorframe. The male shifted his grip and pulled Melissa clear of the wheel arch. He bit again at the shoulder, tearing fabric and skin. 2 juveniles waded the moat and reached the bank behind him, hooting. One tugged at her shoe and backed off while the other circled. A guide in the rear truck fired a blank. The crack froze the line, but did not end the attack. The male planted a hand on Melissa's chest and bit a 3rd time high on the arm, then dragged her by the wrist toward the basin. She kicked once. He gripped her calf and pulled her farther from the vehicles as staff ran for a hose. The spray hit the male's back and face. He squinted but kept hold. A second blast found his eyes. He let go, blinking. One juvenile darted in and bit at Melissa's hand, then fled when the water swung his way. The male grabbed her by the shoulder strap and dragged her 2 feet until the strap snapped. The water drove him back into the moat. Staff formed a loose barrier between the bank and the trucks. Melissa lay on her side, breathing shallowly, blood pooling under her arm and turning the dust dark. Heel marks and dragged lines showed where she had been pulled. Medics from the gate arrived within minutes and packed her wounds, but her pulse faded. She went still before they could load her. Her camera lay cracked under the truck, lens broken but storing a final burst of blurry frames of spray and brown fur. Her phone, found near the sideboard, held a 20-second clip that ended as she stepped down. The park closed the chimp exhibit for the season. Managers set new barriers, fixed hose stations, and banned standing in open vehicles near primates. Her friends flew home early, leaving her gear for consular staff to ship. Local news carried brief segments and moved on. For the guides, the reminder was simple, repeated to every visitor after: one step can put you within reach. The troop returned to routine within days, and trucks kept an extra 10 feet from the moat all year. The safari park tragedy sparked calls for stricter rules, but danger wasn't limited to tourists. In Louisiana, a routine day at a research facility turned deadly when a security fault gave a chimp the chance to strike. It was October 4th, 2013, at a primate research center in rural Louisiana. The morning air was still, and inside the main building, the steady hum of ventilation filled the halls. A few staff moved between rooms, following the same routine they had for years. In the older wing, the chimpanzee holding area was set for its weekly deep cleaning, a task so familiar it rarely drew much attention. Among the staff was Dr. Alan Prince, 55, a senior technician who had worked at the center for more than 2 decades. He had started as an assistant and learned the job step by step, eventually becoming the person others turned to for guidance. Known for being steady and careful, he trained new hires on safety checks, lock inspections, and how to work around the animals. That morning, he was in the main service corridor, clipboard in hand, updating feed logs and sorting supplies for the next shift. Alan lived less than 10 minutes from the center. His days started early, and his work was predictable. He managed feeding schedules, cleaning rotations, and maintenance reports. He also knew the animals well. One of them, a fully grown 16-year-old male chimpanzee, was due to be moved that morning from his enclosure into a nearby holding pen so the cleaning crew could work. Alan was not assigned to that move, but was in the hallway where it was happening. The holding area was part of the oldest section of the building, with narrow corridors and steel doors leading to each enclosure. Each door had a slide bolt lock backed by a secondary latch. Over time, some of these bolts had worn down. One in particular had been flagged for replacement because it didn't always sit flush unless pushed firmly into place. From a quick glance, it could appear secure even when it wasn't fully locked. The repair was scheduled for the next maintenance cycle, but until then, it remained in use. Inside one of those enclosures was an adult male chimpanzee. Fully grown males can weigh over 120 pounds and stand more than 5 feet tall when upright. Their arm and shoulder strength is several times greater than a human's, enough to break bone. Their bite can crush bone as well, and in an attack, they often focus on the head, neck, and shoulders. Even when they seem calm in captivity, small changes in routine or handling can trigger a fast, aggressive reaction. That morning, 2 staff members began shifting the chimp from his main enclosure into the holding pen. The inner gate was opened, and he moved into the pen without trouble. As the door closed, the worn slide bolt didn't fully catch. There was no gap large enough to notice at a glance, but it was enough for the bolt to slide back under pressure. The chimp pressed against the door once, then again with more force. The bolt shifted, and the door swung open into the main service corridor. Alan was several steps away, looking down at his clipboard. The chimp moved fast and quietly, crossing the short distance before anyone could warn him. The impact drove Alan into the wall, his shoulder hitting first. He dropped the clipboard as the chimp grabbed both of his arms from behind. The first bite landed on the side of Alan's head, breaking skin and drawing blood. 2 staff members ran forward but stopped just out of reach, unable to safely grab him. The chimp bit again, this time at the base of Alan's neck, keeping his weight pressed against him. Alan's back was pinned to the wall, and his feet shifted against the floor as he tried to get free. Another bite tore into the top of his shoulder, and the sound of fabric ripping echoed in the corridor. One staff member left to get a catch pole, while another banged on the wall with a mop handle to draw the chimp's attention. The animal turned his head for a moment, but did not release his grip. A 4th bite landed on the neck, and Alan's body went slack against the wall. Security doors at both ends of the hallway were closed to keep the chimp from moving farther into the building. The catch pole was looped around his torso, and after several pulls, his grip loosened enough for staff to move Alan out of reach. The chimp was guided back into an empty pen, and this time both the bolt and latch were checked twice before staff stepped away. Alan was moved to the break room, where staff applied pressure to the wounds and called for emergency services. Paramedics arrived about 6 minutes after the call, but the injuries to his head, neck, and shoulder had caused significant blood loss. He was pronounced dead at the scene. His bent glasses were found on the floor near the wall where the attack began. One lens cracked. The clipboard was several feet away, pages scattered, some with smears of blood and dirt from shoes. The damaged slide bolt was removed and placed in an evidence bag for inspection. The facility shut down for 2 weeks following the incident. During that time, all locks in the older wing were replaced with reinforced models, and a 3rd backup latch was installed on every enclosure door. Staff were retrained on checking locks before and after any animal transfer. Alan's funeral was held in town, with co-workers, friends, and family attending. The center released a short statement expressing condolences and outlining the safety improvements. For those who worked alongside him, the incident was a reminder that experience and familiarity do not remove the risks of working near powerful animals. The research center tightened its safety measures, but outside controlled facilities, the risks could be even greater. In Texas, a backyard gathering turned into chaos when a pet chimpanzee broke free in front of dozens of guests. It was September 15th, 2018, in a quiet suburban neighborhood outside Fort Worth, Texas. The late summer air was warm, but not stifling, and a light breeze carried the smell of fresh-cut grass from nearby yards. In the backyard of a 2-story home, folding tables and lawn chairs were arranged for a private gathering. Music played from a small speaker, and guests moved easily between the food table and shaded patio. On the surface, It was an ordinary weekend get-together, though one planned attraction was set to draw the most attention. Among the guests was Hannah Daniels, 26, who had come with a friend from work. She lived in a nearby apartment and worked as an assistant manager at a clothing store. Outgoing and willing to try new things, she often accepted invitations to casual events. She had never been around exotic animals before, but she saw the afternoon as a chance to take photos and watch one up close. The homeowner was a friend of a friend, someone she had met briefly before, and she assumed the setup would be safe. The backyard was large, with a wooden privacy fence enclosing it on all sides. A patch of shade stretched across the grass where a few guests gathered to watch the main event. The homeowner had promised a special guest, his 12-year-old male chimpanzee, Max. He led the animal out from the side gate, holding a thick rope lead. The chimp was a deep, dark brown with lighter skin around the face. He walked upright for a few steps before dropping to all fours, looking around at the people watching. Chimpanzees share much of their biology with humans, but have far greater physical strength. A mature male can pull several times his own body weight, and his grip alone can fracture bone. Their canine teeth are built for tearing, and their jaws can generate enough force to crush through dense material. In social groups, males compete for position through posturing, vocal calls, and sudden bursts of aggression. Even individuals kept in captivity for years retain those instincts. Long stretches of calm behavior can mask how quickly they react to unfamiliar people, loud sounds, or a change in their surroundings. A few guests stepped forward to take photos, holding out their phones while the homeowner kept Max close. The chimp chewed slowly on a slice of fruit, glancing at the crowd. The homeowner explained he had raised Max since he was young and claimed the animal had been to small events without issue. The rope lead was attached to a metal clasp, and the homeowner's grip stayed firm. Even so, the chimp's body language, shifting weight, pulling lightly against the rope, was a sign of tension. Hannah waited until the first small group had their turn before stepping forward with two other guests. The homeowner positioned Max near them, saying to stand to the side so someone could take a picture. The chimp leaned toward the fruit plate still on the patio table. When the homeowner pulled him back, the metal clasp on the lead slipped open. The release was quick, and Max lunged forward. The impact knocked Hannah sideways onto the grass. Max's hands clamped onto her head as his weight bore down. Witnesses said his first bites landed on the side of her face and ear. She tried to push away, but his grip didn't loosen. Several guests grabbed at his arms and shoulders, pulling and shouting. Max bit again, deeper, tearing skin and causing heavy bleeding. The struggle lasted long enough for others to run in from across the yard. Two men managed to hook their arms under Max's chest and pull him back far enough for Hannah to be dragged clear. Blood was visible on her hair, neck, and the grass where she had fallen. The homeowner forced Max into an empty storage shed and shut the door. Someone was already on the phone with emergency services, giving the address and describing her injuries. Hannah was conscious but unsteady as guests pressed towels against the wounds on her head and neck. She was helped to a chair, then to the side gate when paramedics arrived. They moved quickly, loading her into the ambulance and continuing to apply pressure. The yard was quiet, except for the muffled sounds of the chimp moving inside the shed. She died on the way to the hospital from massive blood loss. News of the attack spread quickly in the neighborhood, with police and animal control arriving soon after. Max was tranquilized and removed from the property. He was later transferred to a secure facility that specialized in primate care. Authorities cited the homeowner for multiple violations, including unsafe handling of a dangerous animal and failure to use approved restraints. The city issued a ban on exotic animal events at the property, and county officials reminded residents that private ownership of such species carried significant risks. Hannah's family held a private service the following week, attended by close relatives and friends. Neighbors who had been at the party described the event as a reminder that even familiar animals could be unpredictable. For weeks after, the backyard stayed quiet, the folding tables put away, and the gate kept locked. The shed where Max had been contained remained empty. The memory of the afternoon lingered, not in the music or the laughter from earlier in the day, but in the sudden, violent turn that no one thought would happen. Thanks for watching, but remember, danger doesn't always come with a warning. The next story is already waiting on the end screen. Click it if you're ready to face the next nightmare.